So on Monday, DeepSeek took over rival OpenAI's ChatGPT as the most downloaded free app on the US app for at the Apple App Store. So out of nowhere, this app just got momentum and it took over the #1 spot. And what happened, it actually wiped out billions in market cap. Shares of NVIDIA fell nearly 17% on Monday. The NASDAQ dropped more than 3%. Some people are calling this our Sputnik moment, where the U.S. is in this technology and space race with the Russians, and then one day all of America had to watch Sputnik fly over. This is kind of the same thing. Everybody in the U.S., what's the big announcement they had last week? The $500 billion with governments going to pitch in with OpenAI and all that.
And the reason DeepSeek was such a big deal is because the company is saying that they only spent $5.6 million to train this model. And OpenAI spent something like $100 million to train their latest, I think it was ChatGPT 4 model. So that is way cheaper. And they did it using really innovative techniques that saved a lot of processing power. So they didn't have to use so many compute cycles. They didn't even need the most advanced chips. They had NVIDIA chips that were not as good, not as many. And they basically, for a fraction of the cost, built the same thing as OpenAI. And so the market's freaked out because they're saying, well, how valuable is NVIDIA really if you don't actually need these super advanced chips to build really sophisticated AI? And the company's down 15%. It's the largest wipeout of market cap in the history of the stock market. $600 billion just evaporates in market cap.
In an afternoon, afternoon.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, we caused this, right? We had these embargoes and we stopped letting them get access to the fastest chips, thinking hey, if they don't have access to the chips, China can't compete with us on AI. So we tried to rig the game, and all it did was create one of those necessity is a mother invention moments where, because they were so starved for the computer power, they had to figure out how to write the code more efficient. So the engineers had to be better than us. We basically created a monster over here. We're worried about, we're worried about whether or not we have TikTok in this country. In the meantime, the real threat from China just happened. And when I say threat, it wiped out 3% of the market value of the NASDAQ. That's 3% from all of Americans' 401ks. That's the threat.
It's funny how it backfired, right? Yes, we restricted the export of the most advanced NVIDIA chips to China. Now, NVIDIA apparently did something that sort of worked around that and gave them chips that were almost as good, but they couldn't get that many. They were definitely at a huge disadvantage. And so that constraint, not having access to lots of chips and not having access to the best ones, forced the Chinese researchers to figure out how to do more with less. So like you said, David, we created this situation. It's funny. It's I remember as a little kid right at the end of the Soviet Union, right? I remember how America, it was amazing how the Soviets always managed to do so good despite their limited resources compared to us. And it's that competitive spirit and limited resources that make people excel. And sometimes when you have too many resources, you get lazy, you get fat, you get slow. And I think that's maybe what happened with us, right? We just said, we can keep improving models just by spending money. And OpenAI has access to basically unlimited money because money was cheap. They're getting massive investment. They can just blow money on building these models. But you don't actually need to do that.
And this might change the game on everything. The electricity that's needed to run AI. Basically Walmarted AI, which could be good for all of us in the country. We might be able to get AI for a lot cheaper now.